Let's talk, tell me what's on your mind. What led up to this before you were mine? I wanna understand you and know you inside out. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about.
Hey everybody, it's Kat, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host Willie. Hey Willie,
Hello, Pat. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And Willie, we have today a very special guest with us. You know, he is going to be talking about a musical legacy. Um, and it really, that legacy helped define the sound of country music as, as we've known it. And even the roots of that we still know today. Um, we're going to have Johnny Owens with us, and he is the son of Buck Owens. And everybody knows and loves or has loved for many years his music, don't you think?
Yes, yes.
So
Hee
this,
haw.
yeah, among many things that he did. So we're gonna remember him and his legacy and talk about how Johnny is continuing that and find out just all the story, okay?
Okay.
All right, Johnny Owens, I want to welcome you to Backstory Sessions. It's an honor to have you, and we can't wait to just dive in and hear all about your dad and music and how it played a part in your life.
Sure. Hi, Kat. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good, good. Yeah,
So,
it sure is nice that you invited me. I appreciate it very much.
well, it is our pleasure to have you. Before we talk about Buck Owens, the country music legend, what was he like, Buck Owens, the dad?
Well, I'll tell you that typically, he was just like anybody else. I mean, he was very caring and everything else. Unfortunately, growing up as a kid and stuff, he was always gone. He toured, I mean, sometimes 320 days a year.
Wow.
And so gone a lot, but he always made it back for Christmas, of course. And I'm not saying that he wasn't home a little bit, but when you're gone 320 days a year, touring and stuff, I mean, because he was just him and the Buckaroos were hot,
Sure.
all the 60s and stuff and 70s and stuff, they were hot. And then with Hee Haw coming up and stuff like that, it just took him further and stuff. But yeah, he was just like we got. He would sleep a couple days and then he would be up and at 'em, and we'd come home from school and then it was just he'd take us. We'd go eat somewhere very cheap, and but it was good. I mean, he was. He always liked to be at home because he knew it was time to rest, and that was important to him because being on the road that much and touring, and if you've ever done it, even taking a trip, a lot of times you're waiting to get back home just so you can rest, and you think that vacations are rest, and they're not.
Yeah, you need a vacation to
Yeah,
recover from the vacation.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Um, so did you know he was famous or
We didn't. I mean, we didn't act like he was famous. Um, Probably until probably 69. I mean, I was still real young, but probably 69. And I think the reason for that is because then it got put on TV. And that's when Hee Haw started up in 1969. And that's when, you turn the TV on and all of a sudden, there he is. And I think that's probably when it hit me the most. And hit most everybody else that hadn't got to see him and things like that. Even though he lived, we lived in Bakersfield. Him and Merle both lived there, And so it was. I think that brought the notoriety as far as what we felt, and everything else. Him touring and stuff, it was always, he was gone. We didn't really get to see that. We didn't really go to his shows. He didn't put a lot of shows on in California, although he did a few. But it wasn't about California. It was about Midwest and southern states and that kind of stuff. So that's how it was.
So was music a part of your life when he was home? Did he play music for you? Did you all sing together? What was that like?
No, I'll tell you that as I got older, we didn't he would want to relax when he got home. He would take a couple days to relax, and we'd even throw the football around and or play catch or something like that and things. And then it was back to he would have all the buckaroos out there to the garage, which they made into a little studio, if you want to call it. But no, we didn't really. I mean, it wasn't like he wanted us to sing with him and stuff like that. He was more about what they were doing and the next step in his career and stuff, because it was. I mean, it was really important. He had a lot of drive to this. A lot of drive toward what the next step might be for him, and he tried to weigh family and work and everything else, but it was just really hard because he was sought after so much. They had the hottest band. They were nominated several times and won, of course. And these guys were great. Don Rich and Tom Brumley and Doyle Holly, Willie Cantu, all those guys. They just meshed together. And the harmony, of course, with Don Rich and my dad was unbelievable. And people still say that today. But I think it was. I think he did what he needed to do.
So did you like music, and what were some of the influences that you were listening to, if you did?
Well, I'll tell you, as I got into high school, sports came into play with me. It wasn't about music. He was bigger than life to me by then. Of course, because he had just started up. And I was barely coming out of seventh grade, and so I think that I went more into sports and that kind of stuff, and trying to fill what I wanted to do as a kid, and he still was continuing the putting this legacy that he did together, and put that music together, and continue with what he needed to do. Music for me didn't show up because I worked the ranches is what I did. He was fortunate enough to get properties and put ranches together. We grew, of course, cattle and alfalfa and almonds and that kind of stuff. And so that's sort of where I went into and everything else. My music career didn't start until 12, 13 years ago. With friends of mine that made me sing a song on a beach with a couple guitars, and they didn't really know the song, and I had never sung before. My dad never heard me sing, and so I'm sort of blessed that I saved my voice all those years because I sound a lot like him, but. The thing about it is I didn't really get into music until after he was gone. And so now, keeping his name and his legacy and this Bakersfield sound of Buck and Merle, Dwight and people like that. And we throw in some hee-haw stuff with our shows as well and stuff. But Bakersfield was called Nashville West. And so that's how my story started and stuff like that, and a late start, but man, it's a lot of work, but it certainly is fulfilling. And to keep this music alive is crazy. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that is, I guess, a part of the backstory. Willie, I didn't expect is that, that Buck would not have heard him sing. I guess in my mind, as I imagined it, I thought, oh, he sung from a child and, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah, that's
sure.
what I would thought too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, you know what, it was funny that you say that, because my brother sung, and my brother started sort of singing around 16 years old. He was the oldest, and he actually got to go on tour for a little bit with my dad, and go out on shows. He actually was on Hee Haw a few times, and so he got to be out there and stuff. It was just short lived and stuff like that, although he sung at the Crystal Palace before I did. And that's how I sort of got pulled into the Crystal Palace. He was sort of wanting to retire, and sort of, because he lived in Arizona and he didn't want to keep taking that trip and back and forth and everything else. And so I actually started at the Palace, gosh, I guess it was almost 9 years ago, and I played there for almost 9 years, and I enjoyed it. People come from all over the country, out of the country, out of the state, out of the city, and it was great to hear little stories from them and stuff at the Palace and stuff. But we didn't. I think because of the past relationship he had with my oldest brother. My dad didn't pursue to see if I wanted to sing or anything else, because he'd already tried with my brother. And I think that was just sort of like, he goes, I'm done with that kind of stuff. And I get it. I wasn't, and I still am. I mean, I get on stage and I'm a nervous wreck. It takes a couple songs, and after a couple songs, then I'm pretty relaxed, and we do a show and stuff. But I think I wait for those first reactions, to see how people are going to take you, and stuff. But because a lot of people didn't know about me, through all these years and stuff. So it really is a great reaction that I'm getting, and I love it. And these people are great, and we're really enjoying it and having fun with it.
awesome. All right, Willie, I know you've got a question. This is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you said you never sang for him. He never heard you sing.
Right.
Did you just not want to, or you were just, with, what happened with your brother, you were like you said, well, I better not, because he's already been through it once and he don't need to go through it again.
Yeah. I think there's a couple different answers to it, and I think they both go sort of hand in hand. I always thought, because of the arguments that my dad would have with him, because my dad was a perfectionist. He wanted, it was all about practice, and everything else. No matter what you do in life, you're supposed to do the best that you can, or just simply don't do it. And then on top of that, my dad was so big in my eyes that I didn't want to let him down in any kind of fashion. That's why I worked so hard on these ranches and stuff. And he didn't ever have to worry about the ranches. He just didn't. He knew that I was there every day. He knew I was taking care of what needed to be taken care of and everything else. But the music part of it, I just wasn't going to go there, and I think probably I would have been a nervous wreck. And who knows if I could have actually sung in front of him. But now I look back and I go, God, I wish I would have and stuff. But you can't just hang on to that and stuff. You have to go forward and stuff. And that's what we're doing now. We're sitting there putting this forward, and we're having a lot of fun with it. We've done a bunch of shows, Utah and Arizona and Texas and things like that. And the shows are doing really well. You know, people are going to the websites, which, you know, I'll plug that if you don't mind. It's Johnny Owens and the Bakersfield Sound, or johnnyowensmusic.com. And you can see the website and stuff and what we're doing. There are a few songs there. I think there's 5 songs on there. There's some videos and some pictures and things like that. There's a bio that tells you a little bit about me and what we're doing and everything else. And with this release today, Act Naturally, it's taken off, and people are enjoying that and stuff. And I appreciate you guys inviting us to have this conversation and stuff. So it's really nice that you guys help us.
Oh, absolutely. And so 20 years, does it seem that long?
No, no. Um, you I think about it pretty much every day because I'm in the music part of it. And what would he do and what would he say and those kind of things. And although I'm not as relaxed as he was on stage, it's still a great story to tell and to keep telling and let that legacy live on through the music and stuff. And we're having, I mean, I'm not trying to be a big shot and stuff, but man, what these people are standing up doing these standing ovations and stuff, and we get to play a couple more songs, and they keep standing up, and we play a couple more songs, and I think it's just because they're not hearing it, they're not feeling it, and everything else, and they just love to sit there and just listen and stuff. And I think that the amount of hits that he had and Merle had, and we play all of those, and I think that people are just enjoying it, and they just, it lets them escape, I think, is probably part of it, you know. And the world today is a lot harsher and harder and stuff. Probably then it probably is the same as what it was in the 30s and 40s and stuff. It's just really hard right now. And so I think it gives them just a few minutes of just, you know, they forget about life. And if I can bring a memory back, that's the huge thing for me. If I can put a smile on their face, or I can put a memory that they go, oh my gosh, that was my, you know, I went on our first date and we went and saw Buck Owens, or we went and saw Merle Haggard, or, you know,
Aw.
that is the memory. If you can bring it back. We lived in Kentucky where you guys are.
Yeah.
Or we lived in, you know, Oregon or something like that. And when I first listened to Buck or Merle or Dwight, or, you know, one of those guys and stuff, but it's I think that if you get a memory, or you put a smile on their face, or the husband or the wife looks at each other and they go, oh man, we watched this show, you know, it was almost the same show, you know. And so I think that that is what makes me the happiest, is watching the reactions. And then when I come off stage, which I do every single show, it doesn't matter what we have to do. I come off stage like my dad used to do at the Palace and stuff, and talk to everybody. And that's just a must. And it's because without them showing up for these shows, I couldn't do it. And without people like you guys, you know, promoting me and talking about Buck Owens and me and stuff, we couldn't do these shows. And so you have to understand that the fans are who made everybody. The people showing up for these shows, they are the ones that made everybody. And if people don't realize that, they won't go very far.
Well, I imagine that you learned some new things about your dad from, these stories that you hear from fans that come that maybe, saw him in concert, or um, like you said, they had a first date or whatever. Um, eh, that's something that, a lot of people don't get the privilege of, is learning something about their parents in that way. So what's that like?
You know, it makes you feel good because, and I'll be honest, there's probably, I'll say 99.9% of the stories that we hear are pretty darn positive. Very seldom have I heard anything that was negative or any of that kind of stuff. And people don't like to do that anyway when it comes, because they're talking to Buck Owens' son. They're not
Right.
talking to their friends saying, well, he didn't talk to me very long, or he was a jerk or something like that. We haven't heard that kind of stuff. What we've heard is, like I just was saying a minute ago, it was more about, it brought back a memory of where they were, or where they lived, or what they were doing, or where they worked. A lot of places. In the 60s and 70s, they allowed music to be played. And a lot of these people said, we used to listen to Buck Owens and Merle Haggard and George Jones and Johnny Cash and all these guys, and Waylon Jennings, and this, what a great show it was, to sort of reminisce and remember where we were and that kind of stuff. So I think that's what makes our shows, for me anyway, makes our show so special, is when you can hear somebody sit there and say, man, it brought back a memory, or man, or they smile, or then they're clapping, and the clapping isn't necessarily for me. I think the clapping is for the song. I think the clapping is for the era. I think the clapping, again, is for the memory. Man, it fills my heart when people are standing up clapping, and wanting you to do more. Our shows are an hour and a half, and we're typically there 2 hours and 15 minutes because of people. And then I'm there at least an hour after the show. Sometimes, like in Utah, I was out front, and there was still 40, 50 people in the lobby, and we're just sitting there talking just about nothing, about anything. And we were there for a little over 2 hours after the show. And as much as you get tired out on the road, this is worth it. It just really is. It's worth it. Arizona, same thing. We were there an hour and 45 minutes and out front and talking to these people and stuff. And it was just crazy. And that's so fulfilling. And if you don't do that, then you better have a really good hit, and you better have another hit after that. And you better have another hit after that, because if not, you're going to go away. You just are, because the people are what makes everything worth it.
Well, Willie, that's a refreshing, attitude, I think, don't you, about appreciating the fans so much? And
Yes,
yeah.
I do. And yes, he is right. Without
Yeah.
the fans attending concerts and whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
then they ain't no point in, they're what makes the performer.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you, Willie, and it's the truth. It really is. The fans that went to Merle's shows and my dad's shows, and even to George Jones and Johnny Cash and all, they knew that that's who was making them. That's who was paying them. That's who was making the way for them to go to the next show. It was paying the way for them to live how they live. A lot of times, these artists will come up and have a hit, and then they just simply forget. And then if they don't have a hit right after that, and you guys have seen it, I'm sure, one hit wonders. There's lots of them.
Sure.
You look at Achy Breaky Heart. That song probably should have been his third or fourth song out, not his first song, because then he had to try to follow that song, with another song and everything else. And what a hard thing to do, But if you don't recognize that the people are what's important, then you won't have the shows. And I think that's why we get to continue doing these and everything else, because it is an appreciation for them. And I always tell them thank you. I always tell them thank you for being here, and thank you for showing up. And they'll tell me a quick story and stuff, and we just go on, and it's a lot of fun. But it takes them and you guys to make this happen. It really does, and I appreciate it. I really do.
Well, as we look at so Act Naturally, How did you decide from all the songs that this one was gonna be the one that you would release?
Yeah, I think because it was the 20th anniversary. I think also that the 60th anniversary of the Carnegie Hall, this being my dad's number one hit, um, I think that that's probably why we picked it. I say we. There was several people involved. It wasn't just me, but it was the publicist. It was the distribution manager. It was the booking agent. It was me. It was my wife. It was a lot of people, and they all said the same thing. Probably needs to be Act Naturally. We are releasing, and I don't know if I said this or not because I've been in so many interviews, but we are releasing Together Again in October.
Oh.
We're also releasing the middle of November, Santa Looked a Lot Like Daddy, for a Christmas song. We are doing an album. We're hoping that it'll be finished March and or April, but I'm hoping for March. We're doing a volume 1 series. But I think that's why we picked that one, because it was his first hit, and this is a start of a huge process that we're in, and we're going to do a lot of them. And we're not just doing Buck, but we'll do a few of the Merle stuff too. But this is a tribute to my dad, Merle, the Bakersfield Sound. Throwing in a little bit of that Dwight stuff we have to, and with Hee Haw skits and stuff up on the screens and pictures and music and stuff. It makes for a really good show. But I think that Together Again is the next one out, and it is. I think that's a great follow-up to Act Naturally.
Yeah. Well, all of these, you had so many to choose from, and I think it's really interesting to hear the order that you are going to release them.
Yeah,
Uh, um, so Act Naturally did cross over with the Beatles recording it.
yeah.
Um, what did your dad, did he ever comment about how that felt
Oh
to
yeah.
have
Oh gosh.
Ringo singing
Oh
it?
gosh. Yeah. You had to realize how big his chest got. When that happened, they contacted his manager Jack McFadden back in the latter part of '64. Act Naturally was still on the charts, and of course it was dropping. But they used to have a 100 series where you were still on the charts even if you were 100 on the chart and stuff. And after it gone number 1, it goes down to 5, then it goes to 12, then it goes to 20, and it gradually goes down and sort of falls off after a point. But I think with that phone call, and this is another story real quick, but after that phone call, they said, well, sure, absolutely. Why would you not want the Beatles to do your song? And so he said, well, Ringo's doing it. And my dad said, doesn't matter. When you put the Beatles word in front of that song, it's they already knew it was going to go number 1, because everything
Sure.
they touched, they could have done an Eddie Arnold song and it would have went number 1. It just would have. And of course, they recorded it and it went number 1. I think they said it was something silly. It was something like 11 days from the release that it hit number 1. It hit like 20 and then 1. and so he was going, holy smokes. Well, the Beatles management called up and said, listen, all the Beatles want you to send your next release to them, and your next one and your next one. So every time that you release a song, they would like to have it if that's possible. And that's an absolutely true story. And Ringo Starr will tell you that story. They wanted every song of his. And if they didn't like it, they just didn't record it. And if they liked it, then they would record it and see if they wanted to release it and everything else. But a lot of songs they would do on their shows, they just didn't actually release the song and stuff. And it was funny to hear that. But I'm going, no. And they said, yeah, that was the truth. And so that was that. But anyway, we're going to continue doing these shows and having some fun and stuff. And again, I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you for having me. And we're going to continue to it today with all these interviews and all the help that you guys are giving. And I appreciate it again.
Well, thank you so much for sharing the
Yes, thank
legacy.
you.
Yeah.
And we'll be listening as these songs continue to be released.
All right. I appreciate it. I really do.
All right. Thank you,
All
and
right.
come back again.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you again, Kat. Thank you, Willie. Thank you,
Thank
Kat.
you.
Appreciate it very much.